in my company, I constantly get the message, "Can we do a PR? Can
Oh,
we
I
do a
love
PR on
this
this?"
one.
And I don't know if it's people who are not marketers.
Hello and welcome to episode 31 of Rockstar CMO FM. The M is for marketing, the F is for, well, you decide. As you're probably asking yourself, does the world need another effing marketing podcast? I'm your host, Ian Truscott, founding editor of Rockstar CMO, your monthly dose of marketing street knowledge. You can find us at rockstarcmo.com or at Rockstar CMO on Twitter and LinkedIn. And you'll find all the past episodes and show notes at rockstarcmo.com/podcast. This episode is recorded on Friday the 8th of October. I hope you've had a good week. I hope you are well and staying safe and as sane as you feel you need to be as 2020 continues to redefine the word crazy. This week, I'm going to share some of the good stuff from our publication. I chat to Rachel Eisenhauer, Vice President of Marketing at SundaySky. And again, this week, I retired to the virtual Rockstar CMO bar with my friend and content marketing guru, Robert Rose. Right, let's get started, shall we? I've wandered away from the virtual page of Rockstar CMO in recent episodes, but this week I've been putting together our monthly chart of the top 10 articles of the last 90 days, and I'd love for you to take a look, especially if you're new to our little publication. I've just realised after I scripted this that I'm not following the normal chart show format, in that I'm starting at the top. And this month, top of the charts is a previous guest on this podcast, Jane Scandura, whose FOMO versus FOGO article that talks about how as marketers we need to balance our consumers' fear of missing out and fear of going out continues to dominate the charts. And for the first time, we have the same author in the top two slots as her advice for us to turn our personal brand up to 11 while we're in lockdown takes second spot. Both well worth a read as they capture the mood and serve up some great advice as this pandemic rolls on. Ever present in our chart since we started this feature is our resident straight-talking Rockstar CMO, Ted Rubin, who takes 3 slots in this month's chart and is in at number 3 with Beware the Risks of Arrogance and Pride in Business, which serves up some typically frank advice from our very first issue. Our backstage articles are always popular, where we go backstage with the CMO and ask them some serious and some not so serious questions about marketing, and the last two are no exception. In the latest issue, we chatted to Eric Jan van Putten, VP Marketing at Dynamic Web, and that makes the top 4. And before that, Sally Yates at Acceptor, who comes in at number 7. Between them, in at number 6 is The Magic Marketer's Potion, An Educated Mind and Attitudinal Skills by Jasmine Martirosian, which explores the need for marketers to get an education and the qualities of a great marketer. Rounding out the top 10 with 2 articles is the wonderful Kate Bradley Chernis, who I've interviewed for this show, and her entertaining backstage interview and her advice from the last issue to walk the talk, her take on the blurring lines between our work and professional lives. 10 fabulous articles that you can find at rockstarcmo.com. Click on the top 10 link on our homepage, and of course, I will include a link to this in the show notes. Right, I think that's quite enough of me. Let's move on to the interview. Rachel Eisenhauer, Vice President of Marketing at SundaySky, oversees all marketing functions, leading a team of digital product and solution marketers focused on building the brand and creating demand for the company. Rachel is one of the original go-to-market team members in the US, joining the company as the first marketing manager in 2012. Prior to SundaySky, Rachel built the digital marketing function at agency EA, an experiential marketing and events firm based in Chicago. Rachel received a BS in Business Administration with a minor in dance from Skidmore College. She was a founding member of the Joffrey's Ballet's Young Professionals Board and is currently on the Joyce Ballet Theatre's Young Leaders Circle. As I've said, this podcast gives me a great excuse to talk to interesting people, and this is no exception. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Welcome, Rachel, to Rockstar CMO FM. Thank you very much for your time. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And for people that don't know you, Rachel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. So I am the VP of Marketing at SundaySky. We are a video platform that powers CX engagement. And in my role, I focus on building the brand and creating demand for the company.
Splendid. And what inspired you to get into marketing? I've had a look at your career, obviously, in LinkedIn. We all can do that now. And you've been there a while, and you've also been in marketing a while. What inspired you to choose that?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in the influence of messaging, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how does messaging, whether it's the written word or visual, or in the case of video, the blend of both, how it influences the way we make decisions, and the power of that influence and of the message. And not just in business, but across society, our culture, politically, especially as we're seeing recently. So that power of influence of messaging. Plus, I've always been immersing myself in the new, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's new art, new technologies. So the blend of the two is really influenced and inspired to where I am today.
Yeah. And is that your background? Is that what you studied? Have you always been a marketer, or did you pivot? A lot of people I talk to have pivoted at some point.
Yeah, actually, it is. It's a blend. Sort of the blend of my background is just that.
Mm-hmm.
I got my degree in business marketing, but I
Mm-hmm.
also got my minor in performance dance. I grew up as a ballet dancer,
Ah, yes.
so personally, my interests and hobbies. I like to call myself a culture vulture because I'm
Mm-hmm.
always like seeking out the new cultural elements, whether no matter what it is, which
Mm-hmm.
is great. I live in New York City,
Yeah.
so yeah, that is
Yeah,
what
you're
I
in the right
studied.
place there in New York. I should have mentioned, actually, that's where you're based. I'm
Yeah.
obviously here in the UK, and you're the VP of marketing for SundaySky. So what is it that's you mentioned video and CX? What exactly do you
Mhm.
mean? What does SundaySky do?
Yeah, so as I said, we're a video platform that really powers the customer experience, especially the digital customer experience. So
Mm-hmm.
another way to think about us is a digital experience platform, but our core experience is the digital video.
Mm-hmm.
And what this means is we really have rethinked how to use video and sort of pivoted it on its head. And most marketers are familiar with video as a top of funnel brand medium, one for all sort of static generic asset, and we've flipped that. So we've made it data driven, rendered in real time, performance driven, and as I mentioned earlier, the notion of video to influence messaging and actions,
Mm-hmm.
that's really the performance part of what we do. So how can video drive the next best action for a customer? And when we think about video in the customer experience landscape, video is ultimately the most engaging digital medium there is, right? It's
True.
captivating, it's compelling, it's immersive. It's that blend of you see it and you're hearing it said to you, right? See and
Mm-hmm.
say, the vocal and visual. So that blend and the power of sight, sound, emotion really allows any person, any customer to be influenced by that messaging, whether they are a visual or an auditory learner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we work with brands to deliver video powered experiences at critical moments along the customer's journey to really educate customers, engage them, and inspire them to take that next best action, whatever moment they are in their journey.
That's fascinating, and that's what I was really interested in. That's why I wanted to talk to you on the show because, we've been immersed in video right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way we can talk to each other. But you talked there about you talked about dynamic, personalized video. So
Mm-hmm.
you're doing. I mean, I've been in the. I guess now it's called the customer experience or digital experience industry. We used to call it web content management back in the day, industry for a long time, and personalization was always like the core topic, but it was always hard to get. That was always became a sort of phase two and stuff. Are you seeing a lot of engagement with your clients around that dynamic personalization aspect of it?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's it's been a topic of conversation that everyone wants to do, all marketers
Hmm.
want to do, right? It's like the nirvana, but
Hmm.
it's definitely challenging to make it work, right? To action on it.
Yeah.
So in terms of video, well, let me back up a bit. Marketers have all this data on their customers, right? Whether it's their
Yeah.
profile, behavioral, situational, like where they are in that moment, like contextually,
Hmm.
and it's quite difficult to activate that data, right? And even more difficult to activate it in video format. But what you had mentioned, like the web content management, that's really what our founders wanted to do back in 2006 when the company was founded. They wanted to apply how can you create a dynamic HTML web page? How can you
Hmm.
apply that notion to video? And that's where we are today.
That's fascinating, absolutely
Hmm.
fascinating. And quite a lot of the time, the challenge with a personalization strategy on a website is about the content. So we understand a huge
Hmm.
amount about our customers, but we don't actually have the content to match what we know about them. If you see what I mean, it's
Hmm.
because it's quite hard for people to create those different content variants based on the audience. How do you help with that?
Hmm. So we part of our platform, it has this notion of a strategy map. So when you're balancing out and figuring out your
Hmm.
video strategy to improve your customer experience, when you, just as you mentioned, we're talking about our audience group, we're talking about the goals, we're identifying the data that we have on them. The missing component that you're referencing that we see in the marketplace is
Hmm.
the message, right? What is
Yeah.
that message, that topic, that story that you want to take that data and transform it into that information, that message to deliver to these audiences. And for us, because video is the sweet spot,
Yeah.
we think of messages as and the message content as synonymous with a video scene. And that's really, again, how we've sort of transformed the approach to video. We think about it in a modular approach. So we've really broken video down to like these modular building blocks that can be repurposed and reused for different audiences, wherever they might be, whatever channel they're interacting with the brand, so that you've got this library of content or the scene library, if you will, with when it comes to video. You've
Hmm.
got this library of video content where you can serve the right message at that right time. And part of building that strategy is exactly what you referenced, matching that right content message
Yeah.
to the audience and their goals.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating, and also it's got such a great name. Where did the name come from? Do you know? Sunday Sky.
Yeah, so it's funny. We were founded in Israel, and there's a lot of tech innovation that comes out of Tel Aviv.
Hmm.
But our founders were very purposeful, and they did not want to name the company a name that would have been mispronounced in the U.S. market, right?
Ah,
So
okay.
they purposely combined two English words,
Hmm.
straightforward English words that would not be mispronounced, and brought together. However, when I joined the company, of course, as a marketer and wanting to, really drive the influence of messaging and words, I
Yeah,
knew I needed to change the positioning of that.
yeah.
So I like to think of the company name Sunday Sky as just this new day, right? Like a Sunday,
Hmm.
this new day, this new era, this new generation of experiences. That really there's endless possibilities in terms of what you can do, especially with video. For us, ultimately, the sky is the limit.
Yeah, it's a great name, and I like the way that you had to re-engineer the story as a
True
marketer.
marketer.
So, as I sort of intimated just a moment ago, during the pandemic, as marketers, we need to rethink how we engage with our audience. We've also and how we engage with each other, really, and we've all been exposed to an awful lot of video.
Mhm.
What changes have you seen in terms of what your clients are saying to you, and what demands they've had of you over the last 6 months since the pandemic started?
Yep. Um, well, in terms of our existing customer base, all of our customers have recognized the need to quickly respond to the pandemic and
Hmm.
pivot their messaging and their messaging strategies in a couple of different ways. The first and foremost one being just adding more empathy to their messages, right? Having this empathetic narrative, or else they risk sounding tone deaf to their customers.
Yeah.
So, across the board, they quickly modified just the opening tone of their video experiences to reference, like, I know these are uncertain times and there's a lot of change, but within specific industries, they've also really pivoted the content of the video as well. So, for instance, we work with telecommunications and cable providers, and some of our customers like Comcast and Dish, they had to change their welcome and onboarding video messages to talk about self-installation, right? Rather than a tech installer coming into your home, how can you pivot to self-install your new cable services in terms of social distancing? For healthcare providers like Kaiser Permanente, same thing. How can they switch the messaging to reference the uncertainty and with your healthcare and how your insurance covers any COVID testing. So, and as I said, that's sort of the beauty of modular video, right? Modular content. Rather than, especially when it comes to video, which is known as highly resource intensive, long lead times, high production costs. It's just a matter of hours to quickly update messaging, have a voiceover recorded, and then it's live and inserted into the existing strategy.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, I wasn't expecting us to go back to the power of the product in a way through that particular question, but if you start to modularize up your video content and you can remix it, as soon as something does change, you're not redoing the whole of the video in this expensive production. That's very interesting indeed. And you mentioned there, I mean, this comes up a lot in the conversations I'm having. And obviously, I mean, we've been running since, I think, just before the pandemic. So almost every question I've asked on this podcast, I think this is number 31. It's we've been asking about this, but I've noticed actually that empathy comes up as a word when marketers talk about how they need to change the way they work. Now, and I also noticed that I think as we were discussing as we were preparing for this interview, that was something that you really feel strongly about. The video plays a role in expressing empathy almost more than better than any other kind of media.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's if you just think about in our human interactions, right, with each other, it's so different when you text someone versus when you are FaceTiming with them now, right? Like you see their visual expression on their face, you hear the tone of what they're saying, versus quick text, which can be misconstrued with the sentiment behind it. And
with autocorrect.
Exactly, right. So I think that's, as much as we can recreate those human to human connections between a brand and a customer, that's where the power lies.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if somebody out there and listening to this is considering a video strategy, and aside obviously from working with you guys at SundaySky, I have to say that, I guess, is what as a marketer, what steps do you think people should take? What should they do if they're looking to create a video content strategy? Because I know that a lot of people are worried about the production costs and all that kind of stuff. But what are you seeing your customers doing in terms of creating a video strategy?
Yeah, I think aside from us, we're really making video modular. I think there are other ways you can plan for your video production to make it be modular, so to speak, or in terms of allowing it to be reusable. So you can scale it across different channels. Even so, simple instance, we hosted our summit virtually this year, of course, over the summer, and all of the sessions were recorded. But we thought about it in a way where how can we record these almost chapter topical, so that we could then, for folks who didn't attend the virtual summit, we could then use pieces in social channels, in blog posts, recapping, and just instead of watching a full 20-minute session, 30-minute session. You can watch 2 minutes on this specific topic.
Right.
So I think that's really critical,
Yeah.
again, to really allow to get more return in terms of your video content and video production. Think about how it
Yeah.
can be reused and scaled across different touch points and channels.
Yeah, your standard content marketing lesson, right? If you're going to invest in a more expensive content asset, then you need to think about how you can reuse it. Yeah, very interesting. So that would be your key tip then for people looking at a video strategy, is how can you sweat that asset as much as you can then across the different channels?
And I think what that's also coupled with the ability to make it reusable and to scale it. That also kind of ties to how it can be more performance and results oriented.
Yeah.
Right. I think it goes all the way back to like TV advertising, right? Now I think advertisers have gotten better with tracking the performance behind TV ads, but they didn't used to, right? And so if you're thinking about video production and purposefully thinking about how it can be reused and scaled in different ways, also think about like the purpose of that and the results and the performance of it too.
Right. Yeah, that's really important. And I've often talked about content marketers, or us as marketers now. All businesses are now, we're all publishers now, right? So, and we need to think with that discipline. But if we go into video and take that further, then we're now media houses, aren't we? And we need to then take that game as publishers and think about ourselves as a media house and how to best use these assets.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got we're sort of running out of time. I've got one final question for you that I ask everybody that I talk to. On Rockstar CMO, if you're not familiar with it, we have a regular feature called the Rockstar CMO Swimming Pool, where we throw all the bullshit, snake oil, and the worst of this industry that we love. And I know that we do love being marketers, but sometimes things can piss us off a little. What would you throw into the Rockstar CMO Swimming Pool?
And this actually just happened this week with someone on in my company. I constantly get the message, "Can we do a PR? Can we do a
I
PR
love this
on
one."
And I don't know if it's people who are not marketers think PR is synonymous with promotion or synonymous with marketing in general. But it's always, it makes me laugh, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go a little deeper here and see what's going on. What do you really want? What do you really need to accomplish here?
And it's lovely when it's a new product feature or something that somebody's really excited about, and you're looking at their baby, or
even an old one, even an old one, right? Old customer partnerships. I'm like, what is the news here? But, yeah.
I won't let you share any more of that. There's obviously some internal pain there, but that is a perfect one. I love that. Let's get some PR on that. It will definitely go in the Rockstar CMO Swimming Pool. This has been lovely. Thank you very much, Rachel. And I'm really interested in the topic of video. So when people spin the dial on the interwebs and they're looking for Rachel, where can they find her?
I'm most active on LinkedIn these days. And I wonder if it's a combination of, not having that interaction with colleagues and the industry live, right? And not doing a lot of events. So I would say LinkedIn. I haven't been active on Facebook in the last year, really. It's too much clutter for me. I will say that's, to me, an example of the influence of messaging gone wrong. But that's a topic for a different day.
Well, I'd love to discuss that. I mean, I've also spoken to a number of people that have recently been quite turned off by Twitter. I myself, I do, but I kind of dip in and out, and it's getting a little bit tiresome. And maybe after the election, if I dare say that, things might calm down a little bit. And then where can they find SundaySky?
Oh, all over. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, of course. We're constantly putting videos on YouTube.
Well, that's perfect. Thank you very much, Rachel, for your time. And I look forward to talking to you about what's gone wrong with Twitter one day then, maybe.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, cheers. Bye-bye. Thank you, Rachel. I enjoyed meeting her as a content management guy. What they're doing with video sounds really interesting. And of course, I will include all her links in the show notes. Right, it's Friday evening here at the Rockstar CMO penthouse in London. I admit I'm a bit zoomed out this week, and it's time for a cocktail in the virtual Rockstar CMO bar with my friend and content marketing guru, Robert Rose. Good evening, Robert. What are you drinking?
Oh, hello, my friend. It's always good to be with you here in the bar. And again,
Yes.
Funny enough, we always find each other in the bar. Well, it's fall, finally. I'm not sure what that says about 2020, that we're into fall. And I don't know whether that's already or finally or thank God. But here we are. We're in fall. And I thought I would do something for the equinox. And so my drink that I'm drinking tonight is called, maybe too cutely, maybe a little cheeky, the Equinox You Out. And it's equal parts summer grapefruit, which of course you get here in Southern California, and fall pomegranate, when pomegranate typically only really blooms in the fall. And so it's basically equal parts grapefruit and pomegranate, therefore the Equinox, with a double shot of tequila. So it's all equal, right? Equal, double grapefruit, double pomegranate, and double tequila.
That sounds fantastic.
Knock you out.
That sounds fantastic. Now,
it's beautiful. It's a wonderful drink.
And as regular listeners will know, I will now attempt to make the drink, and we'll decide whether this joke has run its course or not. I have Hendrick's gin this week. And only because it sounds so good when I open it.
That's for sure, yeah.
So a bit of Hendrick's gin, would that suffice for this sort of?
I suppose it will, yeah. One of these days you may get out to the actual liquor store and do something else. But
did you put ice in this?
I did put ice in that, actually.
Okay, all right, ice. So, that was a bit of a soft ice cube. Well, I put ice in it. Let's put some of this nice gin in there. Splendid. And, you said something like equal parts of something.
Yes, that would be grapefruit juice and pomegranate juice, yes.
All right. So I have tonic. But I tell you what I am going to do. I'm going to go with equal parts.
Yeah, equal parts of tonic. There you go.
And let me give this a taste. It's probably quite ginny, as I went equal parts of the tonic.
There's nothing wrong with too ginny, that's for sure.
Oh, that's good. It's more like a martini with that amount of gin in it. But yes,
yeah, there you go.
That's delicious, and I think perfect to warm you up as the evenings wear on in September for the equinox. Very nice, thank you, Robert.
Of course, indeed.
And what was that called again?
That would be called the Equinox You Out.
I think that would. I really think this would, and I think equal part gin and tonic is probably going to do that. What? And this evening, when we're drinking these fine drinks, where would we be drinking these?
I have to tell you, I am longing for travel, and I have to say that there is no other place that I find as wonderful as New York City in the fall, right? And so just as it's turning, right? Just as it's turning. I would also say London too, but London tends to, get a little more gray, let's call it, as fall falls.
I was wondering which
New York you still get sort of that Indian summer, sort of, you can just feel the cool, the air starting to chill, and but it's still warm in the sun, and the leaves smell it, the leaves changing, and it's just a wonderful place to be. So I love New York City in the fall. So this this feels like we should be. It should feel like, I don't know if it's in Manhattan necessarily, but somewhere
maybe a little more upstate. Yeah, that sounds nice. And I agree with you. You're over the because I was based in New York for a while, and just off Times Square. And once the humidity in August is obscene, and then you're getting ready for the cold of the winter, and just that period between is just beautiful. And the tourists ebb away a little bit, don't they, in September, October? Yeah. And it's just beautiful. Absolutely agree with that. And we have such a wide choice of bars in New York. Where would we be sitting? Are we in the city, or are we somewhere upstate?
I don't know. I think if we look, I think the easiest place to put us would be somewhere in the park, right? Somewhere uptown in the Central Park somewhere, in one of those sort of fancier hotel bars or something like that.
Yes.
Right on the park, overlooking this, seeing the leaves turn and all of that. Really
that sounds very nice. Yeah. That sounds very nice indeed. And as I think I've mentioned on this show, we've talked about marketing, probably. I can't remember. It was a bit blurry in New York before over cocktails. What would be the topic of... there is one topic I do want to raise with you, Robert, though, before we start talking about marketing. Would we be reflecting on a football game, do you think?
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for bringing that up.
That's for our one listener.
For those in your audience who don't know, what Ian is referring to is my team, my American football team. The Dallas Cowboys played the other American football team, the Cleveland Browns, and were handily spanked by the Cleveland Browns. And Joe Polizzi, my colleague that I do my podcast with, we had a bet. And the bet was, if he won, his team won, that I would have to wear Cleveland Browns gear and do selfies and social media. And of course, if I won, he would do the same. Let's just say I had to do a selfie. So thank you for bringing up that very painful topic. I want to just tell you how much I appreciate that. And maybe I'll pour myself another drink at this point. Yeah.
I had to bring it up because I was all in on the Cowboys, because I made some snarky comment about Joe and the Browns and optimism in the last episode. So I really should have done some sort of forfeit as well. So, but thanks for that, Robert. So anyway, we've commiserated over the football. I think I have no idea about American football, but I was watching it over here, and I was with you as much as I could be.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'm going to pretend that I don't believe that you were the jinx.
I felt it. I really felt it. And I was sitting there thinking, this is what happens when I support sports teams.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as a Chelsea fan, I mean, you might want to just reconsider your life choice. Right?
Yeah, I should. And thanks for remembering, because we're having quite the yo-yo season ourselves. So we've moved on from sports, and I guess we're probably now into our second or third cocktail, and you're feeling less of the pain of the football. What is it that we're chatting about?
Have you seen the new trailer for the movie Dune?
No, I haven't. But I know you're a big movie guy, and you're going to tell me all about it.
Yes. Well, I'm also a big science fiction fan as well.
Yes.
So, yes, the new trailer is out for the movie Dune. And this, of course, is Denis Villeneuve's version of the movie Dune, which looks fantastic. But interestingly, the what caught my ear, actually, not necessarily my eye, although it looks beautiful as well, was the music underneath it. Is a very rearranged, remixed, slowed down, if that's even the right word for it, rendition of the Pink Floyd song Eclipse. Right.
Oh, I heard about this. Yeah.
Yeah, which is, of course, the closing track of Dark Side of the Moon. And for those of us like you and I of age, one of our childhood sort of albums that we would play over and over and over again.
Until we were Satanists or something.
And so it got a little bit of a trending status online. And in fact, sales of it, because it struck me enough to do a little more research on it. Sales of that song increased by 50% after the trailer came out.
Wow.
And basically, the 80% of those who streamed the track on Spotify and others were playing it for the first time. So in other words, it was discovered by a younger audience, this song. And I thought it was interesting, and I ended up going and researching it, and I uncovered something that I thought was just fascinating, which is that this is like a trend. There's a trend in this with marketing movies. Basically, so David Fincher used a reworked version of Radiohead's Creep in the movie The Social Network. The trailer for Dark Phoenix, the Marvel movie, that was awful, by the way, used a version of The Doors' This Is the End, the big blockbuster San Andreas, the big earthquake movie with The Rock, that used a cover of California Dreamin'. And so anyway, all of these are sort of reworked, remixed versions of classic songs. And it just reminded me that there was something that content marketers have in common here, which is we often get into this place where, and I've had this happen to me, and I actually have had what I think is going on with this music happen to me as well. So, we create a piece, right? Maybe it was last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, whatever. And it goes a little viral, right? We have what we call a hit, right? A great blog post, a great white paper, some great idea, video, whatever it is. It goes a little high, and we ride the high of that, and all of a sudden the wave sort of dies, and we go on about our business, right? And we go, we lament that we haven't had a hit since then. But the key is that we never revisit it or try and rework it or remix it, or and I just found this to actually work because it reminded me then of a white paper I produced earlier this year that got quite a bit of traction. And one of the reasons it got traction is because I had reworked basically an introduction that I had written almost 10 years ago now. And when this new piece, I referenced the original work, and I sort of, if I'm quite honest, I copied and pasted a little bit, and basically used it to build my argument for this new white paper that I wrote. And then I got a note from somebody who said, a client who said, hey, it felt really familiar to me, this white paper. And so he had actually found my old white paper because I referenced it, obviously. I hyperlinked it. And he said, I went back and read the old white paper, and it was great too. Wow. And so I think it's an opportunity that we often don't pay attention to, which is sort of revisiting our classics, right? Going back and looking at the things that sort of helped, bring us to where we are, went a little viral. And it's just a reminder to us to start using those things in our current work.
Do you think, I think I've written about this, and maybe we've talked about it, but do you think that we as marketers are obsessed with youth in terms of content? Anything older than, a year or so, we never share on social media, and we're just looking for the next thing rather than the fact that we created this thing that was incredibly relevant to our audience 2 years ago, but we've completely forgotten about it.
And I think, it's a short-term memory thing, right? I mean, where I think, in varying degree, I think there's two pieces to it. I think, so there's the one that which is in varying degree, we are getting better, at least I see it, of sort of making sure that we, re-promote older pieces. But that really is like, from, this year, right? You know what I mean? So we feed our social media feeds of this white paper we wrote at the beginning of the year, just in case you missed it, and that sort of thing. So for recent history, I think we've gotten, as marketers, better about making sure that we're re-promoting the summer reruns, as it were. Right? The long-term stuff, that we wrote 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, I don't think we do nearly enough of that. And go back and look at it, because I think we are afraid that somehow those thoughts are stale, or somehow they won't resonate, or somehow we need to be always chasing the news, or making sure that it's relevant for today and those kinds of things. And if we truly are writing and creating evergreen content, it should be evergreen. I mean, it should not really go out of style. And I think it's worth us going back in our archives and actually revisiting some of that stuff. And this is the second piece. If you follow guys like Andy Crestodina, he's the first one to tell you that instead of writing a new blog post about the old thing that went viral, he'd say go back and update the old blog post. From a search perspective, because that's and I'm the worst at that. I'm not good at that at all, and I need to be much better about it. But basically finding those things that did go viral or have ranked really well, and then going back and updating them and just making sure they become anchor pieces on the internet.
That's fantastic. I was listening to another podcast the other day, and that was talking about, and they talked about the same thing, that if you Google for almost anything and you don't put the date limit on it, a lot of the cornerstone piece of content, a lot of it about marketing, is actually the first search result is actually years old. So and people will skip past it obviously because they see that it's years old. But if somebody had refreshed that and it remained relevant, right, you've got your great place there in the top of the search rankings. Yeah,
it's exactly right. And it's why so many, quite frankly, a lot of businesses that I know, a lot of marketing companies, in fact, have taken the dates off of their. I was going to ask you about that.
Posts,
right? Because they don't. Because there's a perception that if you hit a blog post that's from 2016 or 2017, that somehow the information isn't as good.
Yeah. What do? You don't date, do you? If I remember rightly, on contentadvisory.net.
We do not put the dates. No, I don't put the dates. And the main reason is for that very reason, because I don't think it's relevant terribly to things that we do on. We do put dates on papers, research, that sort of thing, but not on the typical blog post. Our typical blog posts, are they're more like these conversations than they are anything else. In theory, they're evergreen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do the same with, as you know, for Rockstar CMO, I just refer to the issue that it was. And you can find the date if you look hard enough, but I refer to the issue. And I've also done that on my personal blog, although I do have at the bottom when it was last updated. But I'm hoping that somebody then read the post before they got to the date, rather than seeing the date up front at the top and then just clicking away because they're like, oh, this is written in 2014 or something that's not relevant to me.
Right.
So that's interesting advice. And but how from a content marketing perspective, that suggests also, doesn't it, that some the ideas that we had a few years ago are still relevant, though, doesn't it?
Well, yes, it does. Yes, check yourself before you wreck yourself. It's probably the, So there's definitely a pause that probably is warranted to say, do you want to? Is this still relevant today? Some of the stuff that I wrote back in 2010 and 2011 makes me cringe, right? I mean, so I'm just happy to delete that, from the memory banks, as it were. But there's stuff that and I say this really with no hubris. I go back and read some of the stuff that I wrote in 2009 and 2010 and 2011. I go, oh.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. That's still relevant today. There's no reason it shouldn't be. Whether it was popular then or not, and chances are back then it was much less resonant than it is today.
That's a good point.
I didn't have the audience that I have today. Not that I have one at all today, really. But,
you have at least one.
Better than one, right?
Yeah, I think that's true, but it does go against, doesn't it, this faddish marketing industry that we're in, that we always think that there's new ideas. I mean, if we think about some of the things that maybe we were involved with back in, when you were a CMO yourself, some of the things we were talking about around content management and personalization, all that kind of stuff is you could repeat what was said 20 years ago.
Oh my God! I mean, you and I were having. I can remember distinctly you and I having a conversation in, I don't know, 2007, 2008, 2009 about headless CMS, and and it's give me a break already. What's old is new again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a whole. I don't throw away any of my books, and so I have books about web content management from 20 odd years ago that we're still implementing those practices today, and some about marketing too that are the same. And I think I think you've talked about that as well. Some of the books from like the 70s and 80s where people have just dismissed it, but those ideas are so relevant today as well.
Oh, sure. You know, I mean, I constantly go. I mean, books from 50 years ago are still.
Yeah.
I mean, my bookshelf is filled with books that marketing textbooks and marketing books that I continually go back and read parts of for new ideas, right? Because some of those ideas are still good. Absolutely. They're really good ideas.
Absolutely.
And they just didn't get, and many of them didn't get the attention that they deserved at the time. And many are now, it's funny. I'm just now using so back in 2008, and I missed this at the time. I certainly wasn't aware of this book or this idea. A guy by the name of James Heskett wrote, and I just discovered this, 2 months ago. James Heskett, guy, on Harvard Business Review, wrote an article and then subsequently a book on this thing called the service profit chain.
Oh, yeah.
And the service profit chain was a whole model. And basically the hypothesis of the model is that happy employees with adequate tools can create customer satisfaction. Yeah. In other words, there's a whole chain of value, a value chain that you can follow and build, that if you want good customer satisfaction, that it can trace it all the way back to how happy your employees are.
Wow.
And it's a wonderful model. And I really, really got into it and loved the book and loved the post on it, and have now leveraged that into my new keynote.
Yeah.
In fact, the one that I'm giving at Content Marketing World coming up, and or just past when this airs.
It will be it'll be next week from when I play this.
Oh, fantastic. Well,
I was going to ask you about it.
And so it's there's a great idea that I missed, certainly, and I'm sure certain others have as well. I'm hopeful that I can resurrect it a little bit, but hey, my idea was James Heskett's idea.
Yeah, no, that's splendid. And it also suggests that actually maybe this marketing thing, actually there's not a science. Is science the right word? But there's a methodology that through the ages that we should respect rather than just keep reinventing it.
Yeah, or to the point, remixing and reworking it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's because what I'm doing is, quite frankly, I'm remixing and reworking Heskett's idea into my new keynote. I'm trying to apply it not to customer satisfaction, but to audiences and top of the journey, sort of programs. And so there are so many ways to leverage great ideas and rework and remix them and suit our today's purposes. I'm writing a piece right now. I'm redlining my piece right now that I'm writing for Content Marketing Institute, where, I'm challenging a little bit of the idea, there's the famous Peter Drucker quote that says, the purpose of a business is to create a customer.
Yeah.
And I'm actually challenging the idea of that marketers have taken the word customer in that sentence too literally.
Yes.
And I'm hoping to build an argument around that. It's still an amazing idea.
Yeah.
And I'm hopefully reworking it a bit.
Yeah. I could talk to you about this for ages. And there's so many of those quotes that kind of people pluck from it what they want to perceive out of it. But if you read the full piece or the full quote, it's actually slightly different to what they think it's about, isn't it?
You want to hear a great one of those? This is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's misattributed. So everybody says that Drucker or Deming said it. What gets measured gets managed.
Yep.
You've heard that a million times from people trying to justify getting better measurement tools.
Yeah.
It's actually neither of them said it.
Wow.
It's actually, and I'm forgetting the guy's name off the top of my head, but I have it, who the full quote is actually, what gets measured gets managed, even when it's fruitless and stupid, basically. I'm paraphrasing.
Wow.
Stupid to do so.
Yeah, wow.
And the point that he was making in the full quote was basically companies are starting to measure things that don't matter.
Wow.
Because they're being managed.
The total contrary to the way that post is used. And have you written about that? Because that's.
I have written about that. Yeah, that was one in my measurement workshop. It's what I open up with. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll seek that out and include that as a link in the show notes. But just a quick. I know we're sort of running time here, but so next week is Content Marketing World. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that? What's happening with that? I know it's a huge.
Yeah, it's some damn event we're going to do. It's going to be online. Blah blah. No, we're excited. I'm excited. I have been. Oh my gosh, I've been working my butt off trying to get everything ready for it. We're trying to push the envelope on this virtual event thing as much as we can and put a lot of production value into it and we've got great speakers, that's for sure. And I just got to interview W. Kamau Bell, who is fun and amazing. And we have, Lovey Ajayi Jones, and she's funny and amazing. And we've got, great thought leaders in marketing, notwithstanding the fact that I'll be there. It's going to be a good 3 days. It's going to be a really good 3 days, solid content. And the way we've structured it is that you can binge watch it, or you don't have to binge watch it, because they'll have 6 months to be able to consume all the sessions that won't be played in real time. Because we're going basically with 3 days of keynotes in live real time. And then we have all of the other 200 plus speakers, basically, putting in their content in sort of a, packages, right, where you can go in and watch them at your leisure.
Wow, that's incredible. And so that 3 days starts on Tuesday, correct?
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is exactly right, all on Eastern time. And so I believe it starts at I want to say 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. Eastern time. It goes each day from 10 till 3 is, I believe, the schedule. But you can find out all of that at contentmarketingworld.com.
Okay. I'll include a link to that in the show notes as well. And the nice thing, I guess, about promoting it this late is that people can still show up, right? Because we're all virtual now.
Yeah, exactly. You can buy your ticket up to the last moment. Yeah, you can buy your ticket to last bit. Yeah, it's all there for you.
Don't need to find your room at the Cleveland Hilton or whatever it is.
Go to Cleveland.
All right, well, that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Robert. And just as a reminder for the listeners, if they spin the dial on the interwebs, where are they going to find you?
Oh, well, you're very kind to ask. It's of course, I can be found on social media, Robert_Rose on Twitter. And of course, I don't know how LinkedIn does their thing, but it's basically just search for me. You'll find me. And then contentadvisory.net is our website where all of that wonderful reworked content goes from time to time.
Great. And then I hope people will join you in Content Marketing World next week. And I'll include a link to that as well in the show notes. Thank you very much, Robert. And will I see you next week in the bar?
Of course you will.
Splendid. I look forward to it. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Thank you, Robert. So that's a wrap on episode 31 of the Rockstar CMO Effing Marketing Podcast. Thanks again to Rachel for the conversation, to Robert for the inspiring cocktail, and our wonderful Rockstar CMO contributing community for an excellent top 10. But most of all, thank you for dropping a dime into your podcasting jukebox, selecting our track and jiving along with us. I hope you enjoyed this show. If you like my guests, please give them a mention, click their links, follow them, and take a look at their work. As I say every week, I appreciate their time, so please show them some love and tell them I sent you. So does the world need another effing marketing podcast? I would love to know what you think. Drop us some feedback, a review, subscribe, share, or just keep listening. I'm glad you're here. Next week, I again use this podcast as an excuse to grab a conversation with someone I find interesting, and it's an old boss, Grant Johnson, who is currently the CMO of Embers, and by his own admission, a veteran CMO and a really knowledgeable guy. And you heard the man, I will again find Robert Rose in the bar. Until then, I've been your host, Ian Truscott, founding editor of RockstarCMO.com, and I hope you'll join us again next week here at Rockstar CMO FM.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the Boys Club of Advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.